Hello and welcome back to Behind Marketing Lines. I'm your host Zeeshan, and today we are going to discuss sales and distribution. Sales isn't the end of the funnel, it's the fuel that feeds the whole engine. Few understand this better than Rob McIntyre, a sales strategist who's built high performance teams and helped brands turn pipelines into predictable revenue. As Chief Distribution Officer, Rob brings clarity to the sales marketing tension, or should I call it sales marketing debate, that we often have on this podcast, and shows us what it takes to align ambition with action. In this episode, we talk revenue, relevance, and why the best marketers think like salespeople. Rob, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Zeeshan.
It's good to see you behind Marketing Lines. Well, the audience would like to know who is Rob beyond the boardroom. What don't we see on LinkedIn?
I'd say the Rob today is very much husband and father.
Right.
That's the part of life that brings most joy. I've lived life, many things, but the one thing I don't never want to miss is being part of my family, my daughter's life. And we're doing everything we can to do that. So it's a very quiet life, but just a wonderful life.
That's awesome. And I think, having a balance between the work and the personal life, I think that's the best thing. Everybody would want to have that. I would actually want to know more how you're actually doing it, probably post this conversation. But let me ask
I can tell you it's a taxi service on the weekend. But it's a happy taxi.
Right. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And consider your life being a Netflix movie, right? So what's the title of the movie and what's the opening scene?
So if it's my life or my career, so I think from a career point of view, it's Are We There Yet? That's the title. I don't think it's a very exciting Netflix series. I don't think I'd be watching it. But, from a career point of view, it would be, at the age of 30, standing in Manchester, knocking on a door, standing in front of a door, trying to sell insurance, pouring with rain, and luckily raining to hide the tears. As in my mind, I'm thinking, what have I done for my career and myself to end up in this place?
Right.
And that was actually working for an insurance agency, and that was the start of my insurance career when I was switching from a previous career to this. And from there, it's been a great journey.
Yeah, what a journey it has been. Looking at your LinkedIn, you've made it to the Chief Distribution Officer of a global brand, servicing customers across the globe. I can see that. So perfect. So the climax is going to be you're at the end of the career, or how do you see it?
Well, I think there's still plenty of time, and there's a lot more we can do. And do I know where my career will go? I certainly didn't know that it was going to have the journey it's had. It's been a great journey, but I will always be willing to take on new opportunities and do something if the opportunity is great. But in saying that, I've had 2 jobs, 2 employers in my career of insurance. So for me, jumping is not the option, but It's always building and creating new opportunity from where I am.
So from a sales floor or from that door in Manchester to the boardroom, what's been consistent in your life, and what brought you here?
I think number one is I really enjoy what I do. I never have a day. People talk about insurance as a career, and when you go to a room full of people and they say, "What do you do?" "Oh, I work in insurance," and either they complain about a claim that wasn't paid, or they roll their eyes and they move to another table. But weirdly, I absolutely love this industry and I love what we do, and as a result of that, every day I come to the office, I'm happy to come to the office, and it also allows me to work really hard and with a lot of passion. And I think that is what's allowed me to develop in my career and open doors for me.
Interesting. And usually when I talk to people about insurance, it's also my probably 7th year in insurance itself. And the first thing that the people tell me is boring, right? And it's interesting to know that, you love working for insurance, and most of your career you have. And I'm looking at, where you have made it in your career. I think that's awesome. So how do you enjoy insurance? For the people who think insurance is boring, well, it's not. I also work for insurance. But what's your take on it?
Well, I think insurance offers so much opportunity, and there's so many different career paths within insurance. And you continually learn. It doesn't matter 20, 30 years in, there's always more to learn. It always evolves and develops. And I think, it makes it a very dynamic place, and your career can take many different pathways. And it's a global product. It's available everywhere in the world, so it also gives you global opportunities. And somewhere deep down, it is a service. It can make a difference in someone's life. We do medical insurance, and there's nothing better than more rewarding when you know that you're helping someone to afford the cost of life-saving treatment, for example, or recent evacuations out of Africa that involve military bases and all sorts of 4 or 5 different aircraft. And even though you're not doing it personally, being part of that team and talking to the partners and brokers going through that process, there's a feeling of satisfaction.
100%. I think, and that makes sense. So what's one misconception that you see people have about insurance?
About insurance, insurers are there to decline claims.
Yeah, that's what they think, right?
Most of the time, insurers, from my experiences, we look to see how can we make it possible.
Right.
How do we make it possible? How do we give benefit of the doubt to support somebody? And I think that's important.
Makes sense. And now I move this to the sales leadership side of things. You are a sales leader and leading a global team of salespeople. So what's one misconception people have about the sales leadership which you want to address?
Well, I think internally, if I was to look at this from an internal point of view, one misconception would be that the sales leader is responsible for the financial performance and delivery of the business. And I think for anyone into sales, looking at sales leadership, it's a team. You're maybe the pointy end of the arrow, but the reality is it's from CFO, CEO, the operations team, the proposition, everything comes together to make it possible. And so the sales leader is one of the cogs in the team growing the business.
Right. And in your opinion, what does the distribution look like in a digital first world, right? Because now everything is, you started off from where you actually had to go door to door and sell it. And now people want to buy it from, a click of a button. So how has it changed?
The opportunity is immense.
Right.
The scale is immense and the opportunity is immense. And I think we have so many opportunities using technology in the digital world, as you say, to maximize. There's social media, there's the websites, there's so many ways that we can maximize our exposure. And beyond that now, if you take a commoditized product, you don't even need to speak to anybody. And I think the entire process has changed the world. However, what it can give us the ability to do is optimize processes and optimize efficiency and operational efficiency. Because when you take what I would call a differentiated product, which is a product that we still need to have engagement, there still needs to be a personal touch, that digital distribution will actually enable and free up time for more personal touch. Right. And I think that's the key, because people still buy people still buy relationships, and they want to work with people they trust. And done properly, the technology will actually give us more time to be more front-facing. My experience is that, when I look at what I do and don't like, I see companies that just hide behind technology, where they've made it impossible to be seen and they want everything to be done digitally. And for me, that's only got so much lifespan, because at some point you still need to talk to somebody. So for me, that's the future balance that we need to all strike.
100%. And I think what technology, or particularly AI, with all its advancement, is missing today is empathy, right? And at the end of the day, when you're in trouble, and I'll talk about the customer service side of things. I had this experience very recently. So my credit card was hacked, and I was trying to get in touch with a customer service agent, and I kept on repeating to the virtual assistant, I need to talk to a human. But it would always say, I can't understand what you're saying, right? And eventually, I think after 5 minutes, I finally spoke to someone. In that time, I think there were like 20 transactions on my credit card already. So I think,
a similar scenario, which was how it's evolved with one company I work with, and again, names will not be shared, but at that point, several years ago, I was able to reach them, and I could tell them all the challenges I had, and they would answer the phone. And then after explaining to the person what I was looking to do, and they said, I completely understand, their response was, now can you go online, so log in and create a ticket?
Okay.
So it was like an internal IT system. So they were unable to do anything. You had to go and log a ticket. And
Right.
now 3 or 4 years on, you can't even speak to them. I tried to speak to them a couple of weeks ago, and there's no phone number.
Interesting.
And so, this is the sort of example of where we're hidden behind technology. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, people still want to speak to someone.
No, 100%. And you look at a lot of dashboards at the end of the day, right? Coming in from different regions or different sales teams. What's one conversation or moment you had from a frontline conversation that changed the way you were looking at things rather than looking at a dashboard?
I wouldn't give you one, I would tell all.
Oh,
So
okay.
the reason I say that is a dashboard can tell me, what's happened. A dashboard can give me trends. A dashboard can do lots of things, but a dashboard can't ever tell me why. A dashboard can't really answer the question. I think the dashboard can help me know the correct question to ask. And you can look at the dashboard and you can see trends, and then you want to find out why these trends are happening. But at the end of the day, talking to your customer, talking to your distributor, talking to your own staff is going to give you way more insight than talking to a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. And so again, that personal engagement is critical if you want to build a team and build a business.
No, 100%. I think and that personal touch is very important, starting from the sales when a customer is coming and interacting with your brand, and then somebody actually closing the deal. And then when the service part comes in, especially, I think that personal touch would always stay very relevant. Right. So, what's one trait you see in every top performing sales professionals?
I would say tenacity.
Okay.
And the reason I say tenacity is because it's the ability to follow up. It's the willingness and the desire to follow up with your customer. When something happens, it's trying to find that solution. It's always trying to improve yourself and become better and learn. So I think there's tenacity in also when you get rejections and you get no's, picking yourself up. And one of the ways that, we talk about different things you learn in your career. And that time in Manchester, when I had to knock on a door, one of the things we talked about was, and that particular environment was law of averages and use your numbers, and it's all about numbers. And the truth is you've got to keep the tenacity to keep going and also remain positive. Because if you're going to go to 100 leads and you're looking to close between 3 and 5 of those leads into a sale or convert them, you need to have 97 people reject you. And when you talk to that 98th person, you don't know which of the 100 it's going to be. But you need to be smiling, you need to be happy, you need to be positive. And again, a really successful salesperson can have that tenacity also in their attitude. And they always believe and they're always going to be willing to keep going. And I think that's a key success.
Interesting. So, a lot of audience for this podcast is people who are aspiring to be sales professionals, aspiring to be marketers. And I think there is a lesson for all those aspiring sales professionals out there is that you need to have this particular trait and you need to know how to handle rejection. Perfect. So, and what's your take on the classic sales versus marketing debate?
Oh, the sales is always right. So the debate, what is the debate? The best of my understanding of the debate, because I'm sure there's always going to be different discussions or views on it, marketing is going to build long-term brand recognition and long-term revenue. And the salesperson or the sales team is building revenue today and going to be closing and generating income today. There's a reason every company, every decent sized company has both departments, and there's a reason there's a debate, and both need to exist. It doesn't matter how we do it. There is no right to wrong. We need both.
Right. Why I ask this question is because on this podcast earlier we had sales leaders and marketing leaders coming in, and we had opinions from them. So I wanted to take your opinion on this as well. So for us, as what I've seen during the past podcasts and what I got from the previous experts coming onto the podcast were that both marketing and sales, they need to coexist and there shouldn't be silos. We need to break those. And at the end of the day, both are working for the same goal, right?
Correct.
And that is the growth of the company.
Absolutely.
And as we used to study back in the days, why a company exists is to increase the shareholders' wealth. So this is what was actually taught to us, I think back in the days in financial management, if I'm not wrong, probably 15, 20 years ago. And I still remember that. But, so...
Look, why a company exists, a company needs to exist to bring value to its customers.
True.
If all I
100%.
did was shareholder value, then we're not looking at what the customer need is, and we're not looking to be better. In
Agreed.
fact, all we're looking to do is cut corners, and why invest?
True.
If all I want to do is bring shareholder value, that's an important part, but that should be the outcome.
100%.
And it's still the same thing. Like you said, these are two teams that both have the same goal, and they both have to work closely together. And I don't think you can be successful without each other.
No, 100%. I think that makes sense. So you have worked with many marketers in your career. So what's one thing you wish marketers understood better about sales?
Perhaps in the modern world, like today, with rapid changes, I think marketing is going through so many rapid changes. There's, this new wave of the influencers, maybe not so new now, and it's all about getting more and more followers. It's more about more presence. And, once you've got that, you can do a lot. But we don't need to, I think we need to keep sight of also some of the traditional marketing techniques, and people still buy the same way. So we need marketers to understand the needs of the customer. We need them to understand the sales process and the challenges of the sales process, and work with the sales teams in building a proposition around addressing those needs. It can't just be about focusing on the social media following and things like that. So I think for us, that's an important piece that we need to do in our collaboration.
Right. And have you ever witnessed true sales marketing alignment, and what did it take?
It's an interesting question. I would say perhaps the best inadvertent alignment I've experienced is when we were launching a new company, we had a new brand, and no one knew the brand.
Interesting.
And from a sales point of view, we were out there and we were trying to sell purely on relationship, purely on the fact that our partners knew us from previous lives and they trusted us. And then that was our sales technique, was us personally, we know you can call us and we will be here. On holiday, we'll be here. On the weekends, middle of the night, we will be here. And they knew that from us from our pasts. We then had a separate campaign, which was a marketing campaign that was launched for an entirely different purpose. But that marketing campaign really addressed a significant amount of the branding issues. And within 6 months of an extensive marketing campaign that was completely unintended for that, the branding challenge disappeared. And so together, combined, it was a successful outcome. It wasn't intended to be specifically for that purpose, but it just shows you what we can do inadvertently, but how they have to exist.
Right. And how do you build trust across a large sales team or lose it quickly?
Well, building trust for me is about being honest. It's about being open with the team. I think we have to set very clear goals, have a strategy that is understandable and it's consistent, and recognize your staff for doing the right things. And if you want to lose your sales team, you can do so very quickly. Don't be honest. Try and hide what you're really doing. Blame them when something goes wrong. Make them accountable for things that they should, that they've had no accountability on. As opposed to a great team, you'll make them accountable and give them the chance to be successful. If you keep changing the goalpost on the team, you're going to destroy them, demotivate them, and they'll vote with their feet.
Right. I've had the pleasure of working with you, but I've seen you as a sales leader is you're very transparent with your team, and you're also very protective of your team as well. So I think that's very positive, and I think that's how teams grow, and when they trust the leader and when the leader trusts them as well in return.
I think we all make mistakes. I've made my share, and
Right.
and I think it's important to keep learning and evolving. And if I look at myself 10 years ago to what I am today, I'm a very different person. And I think that's an important piece as part of leadership, is that you can learn the skill and you have to keep on evolving.
Right. And for the audience, if somebody is part of a very struggling sales team, right, what's one piece of advice that you would want to give them so that they can, put their pieces together?
Yeah, I would say, look, the key to this is to start by listening.
Right.
Listen, understand their frustrations, and we go through it. We start off with the people. Let's find out what the team's challenges are, what they're struggling with. We can look at the process. We can look at the challenges we find in the process. And we address those two things. At some point, you're going to have to look at proposition, but at this point, not yet.
Right.
When we have then addressed and understood what we want to do, develop a clear strategy. a strategy they can all follow. But I don't see value in a strategy that you must do today. I would much rather educate and teach someone to understand why the strategy exists, because if they can understand the strategy, they can follow and believe the strategy.
Right.
And then we can set a nice process to support it. And then we can set clear goals around it. And then make sure that the team, the other leaders in your team, are able to coach and support and develop the team towards that strategy, and just have open, clear lines of communication throughout. And that would be my first step.
Right. And for the people who are planning to, shift from being very sales oriented to moving into a leadership role, so what's one piece of advice you would want to give them?
Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and listen to your team. I think I mentioned it earlier. Leadership is something that you learn, and we all learn, and it's like any skill, and you don't have to be perfect the first time.
Right.
But keep working at it, and never think that you know everything, and never let yourself become arrogant because of the position, because that's the fastest way to your failure.
Makes sense. I think that will stay with me for a very long time. When you get the position, then you need to be more empathetic and understanding of the people around you. 100%. So you do a lot of hiring, I'm pretty sure. So what are a few traits that you see in the sales people or the distribution team members that you hire?
I look for a couple of things when I hire somebody. And I'm talking about hiring someone who's with experience.
Right.
When you filter these days, we all filter through CVs, and I know there's good and bad, but you have to start somewhere. The first thing I'm looking for is stability and internal promotion. I love to see a person that has been able to be with their company for 3, 4, 5 years and been promoted, because what that tells me is that they've come up with ideas, they've actually delivered, they've been through the good, they've been through the bad, they've persevered, and they've still succeeded, and the company believed in them.
Right.
I do have a less preference for, I would say, someone who jumps frequently, because you never actually get time to test what you've been doing, and you never get time you don't show me the perseverance. So I would look for stability. And then I would be looking for the personality to see, do they fit the team culture? And then also what's really important is what are their goals? Because I want to understand where they want to be in the next few years, because there's no point them joining if we can't help them be where they need to be as well.
True.
If I want you to stay for, I would say to you, look, I want you to be with the company in this role for the next 3 years, and then talk to me about your promotion. And if this is the role you really want, then you should be happy with that. And once you get there, we will then look to see what we can do next. And for me, that's important, because I don't enjoy someone coming in and quickly leaving, or someone coming in and then knocking on the door after 6 months saying, I want a different job. So we need you to do the job you're doing. So I guess that's my criteria.
Right.
And the last piece is I do really enjoy if we can give people opportunity from within and other departments, to get into your start sales positions. Sometimes they're the best.
Right. I think the last bit was really interesting, because people coming in from different teams per se, if somebody was working in customer service and they all of a sudden move to sales, and you're saying with your experience that they're mostly a good fit, that's very interesting for me.
Yeah, they obviously need the right personality and the right desire to be there. You can't,
Right.
it can't be everybody. So there has to be a fit, but they understand the company, and they actually understand how the company works, and sometimes they know more than someone in sales for a long time, because they've actually been involved in a different part of the business, and they bring a huge amount of knowledge, and they're also motivated. And for me, I think I tend to have had a great deal of success with internal hiring.
That's an interesting perspective. Perfect. So let's go back to being students when we used to, do those fill in the blanks. So if sales is not about closing, it's about dash.
Sales is about building relationships.
Building relationships. I like that. Right. So, if I go back and talk to a customer experience professional, they would say the same thing. If I go back and talk to a marketing professional, they would say the same thing as well. So I think that makes sense. So sales is also about building relationships. Awesome. Okay, this brings me to a very interesting question, which I always like asking. So if your career was a marketing campaign, what would the tagline be?
So you've seen the movie Finding Nemo, I think. Just keep swimming.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. Just keep swimming.
Right.
Just keep going. And.
I think that makes sense. So, and what one piece of advice you would want to give to people who are aspiring sales professionals? What should they do? How do they start the career? So, what's the starting point? What do they need to do to be you?
To be me, look, to be me is not. Don't. No. What you want to be if you want to get into sales? I think it's okay to learn. It's okay to fail, but you need to get the basics. You need to start on the ground, and you need to do some heavy lifting. I mean, if you want to get into sales, you have to put the time and the energy in, and you've got to prepare yourself for the knocks, because it's the ability to pick yourself up from that sale that you are so close to, and it's going to be your career-defining sale, and at the last minute they change their mind, or that customer that you've known, or that relationship you've known for a long time, and they'll never do it to you, and then it happens. And the important thing is that you can let that go and you can move on to the next one. And okay, I got to learn that with a door being slammed in my face, but you had to learn that was the trigger to keep going. And so that's really important, because if you hold on to it, it festers. And then that will affect your ability to do your next sale. And then if you want to go further into leadership, I think the biggest advice I would give anyone who wants to go into sales leadership is be successful, yes, in your selling. Be a business partner. Don't sell at all costs. Your team around you is your biggest advocates, and they're going to help you. They need to be willing to help you and want to help you, as are your clients, and your partners for distribution. So do that. Be prepared to listen, and have fun. It's a really fun career that can take you to different places and different avenues.
I think that makes sense. So, you've worked with many marketers in your career, right? And since most portion of this podcast is about marketing, and we actually take people behind marketing lines, and we want to show people what it actually is, how it feels, what are the things we are doing behind marketing lines, our alignment with sales, distribution, customer experience teams, finance per se. So you must have worked with many marketers in the past. So what are the three traits you see in a marketer, and when you can say, okay, this is a great marketer because he has A, B, and C?
I think marketing now as an industry has specialties.
Right.
And I don't think there is one marketer anymore. It's the same as there's not one salesperson. You've got different specialties.
Agreed.
And I think we work with teams of people, and in that team of marketing, we've got your traditional marketing for advertising, your traditional marketing for generating the literatures and all the things that people want to consume post-purchase. Then you've got your marketer that's your new age, all around the social media, all around sort of building that profile that perhaps used to be a billboard.
True.
And so I wouldn't say that for me, there's not a trait of one marketer. I think there are many traits of great marketing, and I think we shouldn't try to be one size fits all. I think as a leader for marketing, yes, you need to know everything, but you would need to surround yourself with people that have the skill sets to do the piece that you need them to do. So I would say to be a good marketer, to be a leader, you need to be well-rounded, and you need to listen, and you need to be open to new ideas. And then the rest of it is be very good at the segment you're being asked to do.
Perfect. And you manage teams across continents. So I would love to know, how do you do that? I mean, because the teams are remote, and there are targets, and there are things they're supposed to do. So how do you manage all this?
Have good people.
Right.
Have good people. If you've got a great team of leadership in those countries, you don't need to micromanage. You just need to have conversations. There's no reprimand. There's just agree. There's just understand what you need to do, align what you need to do, and then guys, go out there and do the best you can, and let me know how I can help, and let us know where we can support you. But the key to having a big team or having a global team is having a great team and having trust in those teams. And one of the areas that I do also in interviews, which I didn't mention, is I always ask people what their strengths and their weaknesses are. It is a cliche, But I love knowing what someone's good at and what they feel they're not good at. Because if I know they're not good at something and I hire them, it makes it easier to work with them to be better at some of those pieces. And so I think having that open dialogue with your team, respecting where they are in their journey, makes it much easier to manage a team globally.
Right. And they say that, to handle rejection, you need to have the memory of a goldfish because that's only 10 seconds. So, what's one piece of advice you would want to give people who are actually getting started with sales? Because there you actually get a lot of rejection. How should they handle rejection and what would keep them going? What actually kept you going back in the day?
We did a lot of work around not losing. We used to call it not losing your attitude.
Okay.
And it was the place I was living in. It was that classic ring the bell culture and everything that, we don't do these days in my world,
Right.
and in the products that we sell. And, there's a lot of time around don't lose your attitude when the door closes or when someone rejects you. It wasn't just on the doors. It could be different mechanisms of selling. That was just one I've brought up. But you just have to move on and you have to sort of smile. And if you look at even on customer service, sometimes you see people have mirrors on their tables and they'll have smile above it. Because even if you don't feel like smiling and you feel bad, it's important that you do smile because it comes off. So all I would say is recognize when you're feeling bad. It's okay to feel bad. Take yourself out for 5 minutes, dust yourself off, do a fake smile, get back up and pick yourself up and go again because it doesn't matter. And so you can't take it personally. One of the things that used to say to me years ago, and I don't have any idea whether it was true, but I was growing up in that Tiger Woods era where this guy was a machine. And we used to say, not related to sales, but in different industries, every time the club hit the bottom of the bag, he would forget the last shot. I have absolutely no idea if it's true. But that worked for me in selling is move on because the next one's a brand new opportunity. And everyone needs to find that trigger or that clue.
I love it. So I did, in my short career, I've done telesales. Back in the days, I was a student. I was doing that, part time. And what I saw was, a lot of people coming in thinking that, they'll be able to make a lot of quick cash. But then when they would see rejection, they would drop out, right? And I think that was the only field I saw where a lot of people were coming in and a lot of people were going out as well. So how do you retain your sales team?
We don't operate in that style of environment.
Right.
So I would say our exposure to selling is a very different, much more relationship-based, cultivating relationships style of selling. And so we don't see that high level of turnover. If you're in that environment, I think you just need to create a fun environment. That's where you need to ring a bell and where people need to run around the room high-fiving people to an extent because it is very difficult to face rejection after rejection after rejection and not take it personally. And so you've got to keep people engaged. In our world, we're a very different style of selling. We're a B2B to C. And so for us, it's about building relationships. You still get that disappointment, but we don't face that same dropout. So
Right. Awesome. And any questions you have for marketing that you would want me to answer?
do you know, no one's ever asked me the question around what do I think is a good trait in marketing? And I'd love to hear your feedback for around what you think is a good trait in marketing, around what makes a successful marketer in the modern world.
Right. I think for me, a good marketer needs to be a good listener. They need to understand and listen to the internal customers as well as the external customers. And the second thing the marketer needs to be is analytical now, especially in today's age and world where everything is about numbers. So if you're able to understand your surroundings, understand the internal environment, and then you go ahead, you be analytical, you run those numbers, and then you're a bit creative as well. Because whatever is coming out of the little marketing factory you have, if it's creative and if it resonates with people, I think then it will be able to attract people. So marketers should ideally be able to, help with acquisition as well as retention.
And then in terms of a differentiated sale versus a commodity sale, how do you see that changing the pathway that a marketer should be taking?
I think it's a very interesting question. For me, I think the job of marketer is to create value around the brand and the product or service, or commodity or service or experience, whatever is being sold, right? So if a marketer is able to position the brand in the mind of the consumers in a way that the company wants it, if he or she is able to do that, I think then half of the job is done. And then their job, the next job that they have after creating awareness, is to, make them take action. Come have a trial, or test the product, or buy the product or service, experience it, and then stay with it. Because if they don't stay, and if the next year they're looking for another product, then I think marketer failed. So ideally, a marketer should be co-creating the product at the beginning, then helping sell, and then helping service as well, so that they can help retain the customer. So adding to the customer lifetime value, I think, should be the job of a marketer.
And I think it makes sense, and where that aligns when I was saying, what do we need marketers to understanding the customer's need, it's very critical that marketing and distribution work together in the entire life cycle of the product, the entire process of the distribution. True. And the engagement, because that's key. That's key.
100%. So which tells me that, I can invite you to co-host next episode with me as well. What do you think?
Well, I would love to.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Rob. I think it was a very fun conversation. And,
thank you, Zeeshan.
Thank you for taking time out. It was indeed a pleasure.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you very much for having me. And, we look forward to seeing more of these and dialing in to watch more of these as they come out.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.